Statistics Canada show Canadians continue to shun travel to the United States. The data shows 1.4 million Canadians made return trips from the U.S. by car in October. That's a drop of more than 30% from the same time last year. And the number of Canadians making return trips by air from the U.S. last month was about 437,000. That's down nearly 24% from a year ago.
A new form of protest is emerging in Canada. One that doesn't rely on banners or street marches. It's quiet, discreet, yet carries significant weight because millions of Canadians are choosing to do something they rarely did before. They're deciding to stay home and not cross into the United States. The latest data from Statistics Canada reveals a striking trend. The number of people traveling to the United States by land has dropped by more than 30%, while air travel to the US is down nearly 25%. That means millions of canceled trips, billions of dollars that would have flowed into American communities suddenly evaporating, and, more importantly, a clear sign that Canadians have truly had enough. But this isn't just about tourism or weekend shopping runs, it's about a sense of self. And even though many people won't say it out loud, this behavior reflects exactly what Prime Minister Mark Carney has been repeating for months. Canada is fully capable of standing on its own without relying on the United States the way it once did.
Take us through this latest report from Statistics Canada.
Yeah, so what we're really seeing is that Canadians are not visiting the United States as often as they used to. So this latest report from Statistics Canada released this morning says that the number of return trips among Canadians traveling to the U.S. in October dropped by nearly 24% for air travel and then more than 30% for land travel. That's compared to the same time last year. And we've really been seeing this decline since early this year. This, of course, tied to the souring relationship with the United States because U.S. President Donald Trump launched a trade war, has also been referring to Canada as the 51st state, which has really left a bad taste in people's mouths. We've heard from Canadians who are boycotting travel to the U.S., and that's really costing the United States. When we look at a recent U.S. Travel Association report, it estimates this year America will see a 6.3% drop in international visits and a 3.2% decline in international tourism spending. That's a loss of $5.7 billion compared to last year, and this is largely being driven by fewer Canadians.
When asked why cross-border travel has dropped so sharply, the answer has been far from comforting for Washington. Canadians are expressing their views through the way they spend their money. Over the past year, the number of travelers heading to the United States has plunged by double digits, while the number of people choosing to vacation within Canada or fly to Europe and Asia has risen noticeably. For the first time in decades, border-adjacent cities like Detroit, Buffalo, and Seattle are openly voicing their concerns. Restaurants are seeing fewer customers, hotels are cutting shifts, and communities that have long depended on Canadian visitors are beginning to feel the strain. An expert in the aviation and tourism sector put it bluntly: this isn't a temporary fluctuation, but a shift in mindset. And that shift reflects one thing: Canadians no longer want to support the United States under Trump.
So as we were just hearing there, with losses potentially in the billions for the U.S. tourism industry, how are businesses south of the border that rely on Canadian tourists, how are they managing?
Well, we're hearing from those closest to the Canadian border that they really are hurting, and they're trying to entice Canadian customers. We know that tourism organizations in Seattle, in Buffalo, and upstate New York, they've actually got promos and discounts going for Canadians. And right here in Windsor, where, people say that Detroit really feels like an extension of this city, we know that people aren't visiting as often as they used to. One restaurant in Detroit was saying that the lack of Canadian visitors is hurting their bottom line.
Absolutely, you do see a loss, but and hopefully they come back, and that's our goal, is to get everyone back and let everybody know that they're welcome here.
It all began with the wave of import tariffs on steel, aluminum, lumber, and even automotive parts. When Donald Trump rolled out his America First slogan, his target wasn't only China, but also the United States' closest neighbor, Canada. Those tariffs didn't just strain Canadian industries, they struck at the pride of the Canadian public. From offhand comments about Canada being the 51st state, to dismissive rhetoric and trade barriers wrapped in the language of national security. Each incident piled onto a growing resentment that no media campaign could soften. And now the consequences are visible. The U.S. tourism sector is losing billions of dollars as Canadians quietly turn away. There were no calls to action, no announcements, no loud declarations. Canadians simply said, "That's enough," and stopped crossing into the United States. Even as Washington tries to downplay the issue, the numbers tell a very different story. The trend of avoiding travel to the U.S. is real and spreading far faster than anyone expected.
Angela, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. So here we are. I mean, this has been happening for month after month after month, ever since Donald Trump made his 51st state annexation threats and the tariffs. How has your business been directly impacted by clients avoiding travel to the U.S.?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Andrew. It is certainly something that, any of the travel agencies that really focus in on southern destinations within the U.S. are seeing a huge decline. We are seeing lots of people that are now wanting to, take their families to Caribbean cruises, perhaps going to all-inclusive resorts in the Caribbean, to Mexico. And a lot of those places do have quite a lot to offer. We're also seeing families that have sort of their preteen, teenagers that are actually starting to look at, instead of traveling over the winter months, going away in the summer and doing trips to Europe, whether that's a Mediterranean cruise or doing land tours through places like Italy and Ireland.
What makes this moment so striking is the choice Canadians themselves are making. They're not canceling their vacations. They're simply changing direction. Instead of flying to Florida, they're choosing Whistler. Instead of heading to Los Angeles, they're traveling to Vancouver Island. And instead of going to New York, they're spending their time in Montreal. Domestic tourism has surged, injecting billions of dollars into communities across Canada. Hotels, restaurants, and cultural venues that once competed directly with the American market are now thriving. This is no coincidence. It reflects the spirit of the Support Canadian Policy at Work initiative that Prime Minister Mark Carney has championed since taking office. He's emphasized that every dollar you spend in Canada is a dollar invested in our future. Canadians have responded with action. What began as a backlash against Trump has now evolved into an expression of national pride. Pride in Canadian-made goods, Canadian jobs, and the beauty of Canadian destinations. And on the other side of the border, the impact is unmistakable. Hotels in upstate New York have slashed their prices by nearly half in an effort to attract guests. Shopping centers in Buffalo have shortened their operating hours. Many gas stations that relied on weekend traffic from Ontario have been forced to close. Even border crossings that were once bustling are seeing their slowest traffic in years. Meanwhile, American tourism agencies are pouring millions of dollars into advertising, rolling out incentives ranging from discounted hotel rates to free parking, all aimed at luring Canadians back. But Canadians are not easily persuaded because this shift isn't just economic, it's emotional. Canadians increasingly feel less welcome in the United States under Trump, and that sentiment is creating a divide that is difficult to bridge. While Washington works to rebuild goodwill, Carney's team has deftly woven this sentiment into Canada's broader development strategy. Programs like Buy Canadian First and Build at Home, pushed by the Prime Minister, have reinforced this mindset, turning political frustration into economic momentum. From steel to tourism, Carney's direction remains consistent: reduce Canada's dependence on the American market. And now, it's happening organically, without tariffs, without open confrontation. It's unfolding simply through everyday choices Canadians are making, choices that are reshaping the structure of the entire economy. Carney doesn't need to distance Canada from Trump. Canadians are doing that themselves. The irony is clear. Trump's own actions, tariffs, insults, and extreme nationalism are the very things driving Canadians further away from the United States. The data now reflects a broader reality. Every dollar that doesn't flow south is being reinvested into Canadian tourism, services, infrastructure, and entertainment, creating a self-sustaining cycle of growth. Airlines are adding more domestic routes. Hotels are expanding throughout the Rockies. Small businesses in places like Banff, Kelowna, and St. John's are seeing unprecedented growth. This isn't a passing trend. It's a shift in how Canadians see themselves. By choosing to travel within their own country, they're supporting the economy while sending a message that Canada is fully capable of standing on its own. The movement to reduce travel to the United States has, almost unintentionally, become one of the most powerful community-driven economic shifts in modern Canadian history. Quiet, organic, and unstoppable,